Hello and welcome to another episode of Macro and the Markets. We're delighted to have our regular guest, Professor Brunello Rosa from Rosa and Roubini Associates, and today's video is dedicated to UK election. Brunello, welcome again.
Thank you, Marcello. It's been a pleasure to be here.
So what has happened in terms of unanticipated results? Just take us through the process and what you think is going to be the first few months of this new Labour government.
Yeah, so the result was telegraphed. We have known for months the Labour will win, and it won with a very, very large majority. Um, the slide that I'm showing here shows kind of an interesting point, though. You see that Labour won 34% of votes. But then it took 64% of seats in parliament, which is huge majority. Um, and everybody's talking about this supermajority. But if you think about that in 2019, the last election, Labour won 32% of votes, and actually encountered the worst defeat in the last 100 years. This tells you that the reality is that it's the Conservative Party that has collapsed more than Labour has increased massively the number of votes. In absolute terms, Jeremy Corbyn won way more votes than Keir Starmer. And in relative terms, Starmer only got 2% more. But the collapse of the Conservative Party and the rise of the Reform Party by Nigel Farage meant that the right-wing part of the political spectrum was divided, and therefore uh, you saw a very large victory by Labour in terms of seats. And also, let's not forget, also the Liberal Democrats that won 71 seats, the highest number in many decades. All other parties, including Reform, you see, with 14% of votes, they got almost just 5 MPs, so almost nothing. And these are the distortions, if you want, of the electoral system. But it's very effective because the electoral system only serves the purpose of creating a majority. And this majority clearly exists. Now, Starmer, to answer the second part of your question, will start governing immediately, of course. The transition is super fast in the UK. The government sat down and had its first meeting of the cabinet literally on the day Starmer got appointed by the king the day after the election. So super smooth transition, actually very civilized. The last speech by Sunak was a recognition of the qualities of Starmer and vice versa. So we wish in other countries the transition of power was so peaceful and civilized. We know that this is not always the case. What are they gonna do? Labour needs to fix first and foremost domestic priorities, including the NHS, which is the national health system. Now, problem is that even the NHS, which is clearly visible, has been damaged by Brexit because lots of doctors were coming from Europe and they left, plus lots of European immigrants. They were paying the contributions for the NHS have also left. So the NHS found itself without funding and without doctors. No surprise, it's broken. So the real question for Labour is, can they fix their domestic issues without fixing the mother root of all these, which is Brexit? And I think it's going to be very hard. And that's the reason why I believe that Labour effectively in coming months and years will start a very slow and long process to rekindle with Europe. They need to do it carefully because we know that you see from the votes there are lots of people in the UK that don't want to hear about Europe anymore. and Europe is showing signs of crisis, as we will discuss later on. But it's very hard for the UK to fix its domestic problems without rekindling with Europe. So I think eventually, behind the scenes, Starmer will start this very long journey that will bring the UK closer, but not in, not within, closer to the EU.
Thank you. So just to wrap up, and of course, I'm simplifying matters to the benefit of our audience. Do you think, without giving investment advice, which we don't and cannot do, but do you think that the fear of an aggressive tax raising immediate Labour government will put investors away from the UK market, which, by the way, looking at the multiples up until a few months ago was a very cheap market? Or do you think that with Starmer moving the party closer to the center, it would be a very long process, as you said, but there won't be this fear of these old traditional tax raising government, which will prevent more investments and more investors in the equity and fixed income market?
Yeah, this is the risk that Starmer will raise taxes. To some extent, they've even said so in the manifesto, so it wouldn't be a surprise. I don't think they're going to raise taxes in a way that investors will be completely spooked. Clearly, here there's an element of social justice. During the 14 years of conservative government, the poorer segment of the population was the worse off because they receive much less benefits, much less aid from the social, from welfare, let's put it that way. And this was access to the middle class that was voting conservative. From a political perspective, it was very convenient. But from a social justice perspective, it was disastrous. And therefore, this resulted in Brexit first, because the lower end was very disappointed, and in the victory of Labour. So there's an element of recreating some form of social justice, which means taxing those who have not been taxed as much in the last 14 years. I know this can spook investors, but I think they will do it very gradually. And this is a sensible government, pro-business in many respects. I would say even more pro-business than the later conservative governments. So I think there's really great potential for Britain in coming months and years.
Okay. Thank you. We'll finish it here. We apologize. As you can see, I'm traveling in summer season, so we're on hotel lobby. So the quality of the video is not perfect, but I wanted to get Professor Brunello Rosa's opinion soon after election. So that's more important than the quality. I thank you, Rosa and Roubini Associates and
Thank you.
Brunello Rosa, and stay with Mercury Partners Academy with our regular guest until the next special on macro the markets, which will be on French election. Thank you, Brunello.